Men are generally pretty good at the big things. You know what we're not good at? The little things. Your wife says, hey, will you take out the trash cans this morning to the curb before you go to work? And you don't. Or she says, hey, on the way home, can you pick up a gallon of milk? And you say, sure. And you don't. It's these little things that I think over time, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. I think you have to be more intentional about the little things than you do about the big things, because the big things will get taken care of. It's in front of your face. You'll see it. But those little things, man, that is sinister. Kipp, what's up, man? It's good to be back after being gone last week. You and Jay handled it all on your own.
We tried. How did it go? I'm following you on the social, so I'm pretty excited to hear your report back on why you missed our recording last week.
Oh man, it was awesome. Yeah, I went to Kentucky and I met with Dwayne Noel, and I've had this idea lately of just going to hang out with and spend time with some of the men that I've interviewed, some other men that I want to be able to spend some time with, who are doing interesting, manly stuff. And Dwayne is a horseman, and so I messaged him. I said, "Hey, let's do this. We've been planning this for months, and we've both had to cancel once or twice. But anyways, we finally make it work." And yeah, I went out there. I said, "Just put me to work. That's all I want. Just put me to work, and then I'll interview you in real time. We'll take some video, and then we'll sit down at some point and do a podcast." So went out to his property there in Kentucky, rural Kentucky. No electricity, no running water, and we had a good time for a couple of days clearing some trees. We were going to build a gate, but he was missing some parts or some components that were coming in, and cleared some trees, had some good impromptu discussions, and then we sat down and did a podcast. And then I flew down to Dallas after that and met with Skylar Lewis with Rise Up Kings, did a podcast with them, and they have a really cool organization. So it's been fun. It's been fun to travel a little bit and do some of those things that I would not normally do, here in my hometown.
That's awesome. We're excited to hear about those episodes coming out, hopefully in the near future.
Well, Dwayne's would have released yesterday as of the release of this recording. So people should have been able to listen to it for the last 24 hours. And it is really, really good.
That's awesome. Well, let's get into
I'm also
questions.
In the process of...
Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
I was just going to say, I'm also in the process of buying a bunch of new camera equipment too, so we can improve the production quality for our YouTube channel. So if you guys aren't following the YouTube channel, make sure you check it out. It's youtube.com/orderofman.
Awesome. All right. You good to go hop into some questions?
Let's do it, man. Let's get after it.
All right.
I think there was a couple from last week that didn't get answered, and we'll get those, and then we'll get the rest on what were we going to do it on? Oh, fulfillment and purpose and meaning in our lives. But we'll see what these first two questions are.
All right, sounds good. So Josh Hubler from the Battle Team Crusader, actually in the Iron Council, if you lost everything, what would your next move be to start back on the right path? How would you keep yourself from falling into a negative victim mindset?
Man, that's tough. Okay, so if I lost everything, in the spirit of this, I have ideas, but I'm like, no, in the spirit of the question, let me make some assumptions here. So nobody's helping me out. I don't want family to help me. There's no, it's just me, myself, and I on the path, the road to redemption. Okay, so what would I do here? And I'm trying to think, if I literally lost everything. I had the clothes I was wearing, and that's it. And maybe a driver's license. Can you give me that? If I have that, then we'll do the rest. I think, okay, so the first thing I would do is I would probably go to see, I need somewhere to stay, right? So I have to figure that out. Okay, where am I going to stay? And so I'd look for just some local support options, or I'd call up some friends if I had those friends and say, hey man, can I crash on your couch for a couple of days or a couple of weeks until I get my feet under me? I'd call you up, Kipp, is what I'd do. And I'd say, hey, let me crash in your basement for 2 weeks. And then from there, I'd go get a job. If I had to work at McDonald's or, work at I don't know, some entry level position, I would just go get a job. And I wouldn't be beneath doing that work because I need the cash flow and eventually I'd find my own place. But that's some details of what I would do. But the most important thing I would do is I would start putting myself in positions of other important, powerful movers and shakers. That's what I would do. I'd start going to Rotary meetings, Chamber of Commerce meetings, local business networking functions, all the things. Again, it'd have to be free because I don't have any money yet, but that's what I would do. I'd just go around and meet people and connect and talk about what I'm good at, find out what they're good at. And here's another thing I would do. If I had nothing, you might think, well, I don't have anything to offer anybody, but here's where you can be valuable in spite of having anything valuable to offer. If you can be the middleman, and that's what I call it, the middleman. We want to be the middlemen in these transactions. And what does that look like? So Kipp, let's say I'm at a networking event and I introduce myself. I'm like, hey, I'm Ryan, you're Kipp, and you tell me what you do. And you tell me that your organization is hiring an IT support person and you need some help in that department. You haven't found good quality candidates. And I remember that just last week I met Nathan at the BNI meeting, and he is an IT professional and he's not happy with his current job. So I get on the phone with Nathan. Hey, Nathan, I've got a guy I met this week. He's looking for an IT guy, great company, seems to be pretty reputable. Can I make a connection? And then I call you and I say, hey, Kipp, I talked with Nathan. He actually is looking for additional work. Can I make a connection? And then I introduce you to. And I do that over and over and over and over again. And before you know it, you become somebody who's the middleman, the connector, the one who understands what everybody needs and what everybody wants and has the solutions. So I think the networking component is huge, and that's going to help create opportunities for you. There's a lot of other things, but that's kind of where I would start.
Yeah. Let me add a little bit to Josh's question here, because I have a feeling he's the second part of his question is falling into the negative victim mindset, right? So let's go there a little bit. I want to get your response there. Is like the feeling, right? I've lost everything. Maybe you didn't lose everything, but you felt like you have, right? Your wife leaves you. You feel alone. You don't feel appreciated at work. You feel like everything is against you. How do you rise in that from a mindset perspective, right? To then start taking the action that you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that you often talk about, and maybe I missed that in the first part of that, so maybe I went off on a completely unrelated tangent when I shared that. But one of the things that you often talk about, Kipp, is the gap and the gain, and the book, The Gap and the Gain. And I believe that where we put our attention, our activity follows. So if I focus on all of the bad and horrible things that have happened to me, I'm only accentuating all the bad and horrible things that have happened to me. And I start painting myself as a victim very quickly when I do that. Because let's be honest, there is some victimization that takes place in life. You know, somebody mistreats you, somebody takes advantage of you, you get passed over for a promotion because of a personal beef that you might have with an individual. Like, these things happen.
Yeah.
We don't need to be unrealistic about what's going on, but if we focus on that, then we'll just attract more of that to our life, or at least accentuate it and give ourselves a bad attitude, which only exacerbates the problem. If, however, and you said this, you didn't actually lose everything. Losing everything is a lot. I don't know if anybody, losing everything would be you dying, essentially.
Yeah.
You haven't lost everything. You still have your health. You still have your energy. You still have your vitality. You still have the skill sets that you have. You still have connections that you've made. There's a lot that you have, even when you think you have very little. And if you spend more time thinking about the gain, meaning what you have, the friendships that you have, the professional and personal accomplishments that you've done in your life, that's going to exacerbate that. You're going to have more of that in your life. People are going to want to be around you. They're going to want to present opportunities for you. Negativity has no space in your life other than just, these are the facts. Lost my job. Okay, don't need to get negative about it. Just, you got to find a new job. Dealing with a medical condition. You don't need to get negative about it. You need to address what needs to happen so you can overcome this medical condition you're dealing with. Easier said than done when you're not in the midst of it, but that is the reality of the situation.
Yeah. I mean, a few things that come to mind, and I'm still in this from your playbook, is sometimes you talk about when we feel a little bit stuck, mixing it up a little bit, right? And so I think deal in reality, right? Like, okay, like don't kick the can. And you even mentioned this morning on our all hands call in the Iron Council, that sometimes guys, when they're struggling with their finances, what do? They don't look at the balance. When we're struggling with our weight, we don't look at the scale. So, and that's a form of not dealing in reality. So I think step number one is deal in reality. This is difficult, right? My wife stepped out on me. I missed that promotion. I don't feel like whatever it is, just deal with what's so, and then immediately move to action as quickly as possible. I found this fascinating. I learned about this last week, that a study has proven that motivation, guess when it shows up? Not before action. It doesn't show up before action, but yet we think, well, I'm not really motivated. No. You don't get motivated. You start acting and then you get motivated. So I would move to action as quickly as possible. Don't overthink it and start taking action towards the thing that is causing you to feel that you've lost everything. I think once you start doing that, you get momentum, you get some reps, right? And you get some motivation along with it.
Yeah, I would also say, and I agree with everything you just shared there, Kipp. I'd also say do not over-index the feelings that you're experiencing in the circumstances that you are. I mean, it's there, right? And those feelings, totally. I believe, even the so-called negative ones, are there to serve you. If you're feeling bad about something, maybe it's because you ought to be feeling bad about something. And so you don't want to be dismissive of that feeling, but you don't want to over-index it. And what I mean by that is make it mean something about you. I'm a horrible person. I'm no good. I'm not useful. I'll never accomplish anything great. That's over-indexing. You're just putting too much of an emphasis on the feeling, the emotion behind it. It's just an indicator. When I'm driving down the road and the check engine light comes on or the fuel light comes on, I don't lose my cool and say, I'm a loser because the check engine light just came on. And then I do something crazy. I jerk the wheel and wrap my truck around the next telephone pole because I lost my damn mind. But that's what we do as human beings when we get emotional, is we over-index it. We put too much weight and emphasis on it, and then we end up doing something stupid. Instead, the check engine light comes on. Maybe you slow down, maybe you get off the freeway, maybe you drive it into the local mechanic, you have them take a look at it, have them reset it, have them fix whatever's going on. If the fuel light indicator comes on, roll into the next gas station, fill it up, and get back on about your way. It means nothing. It's just a step along the journey.
Yeah, just an indicator. I love it. All right, we're going to hop into questions related specifically around purpose, meaning, identity, and fulfillment. Brad Peterson, how much of this relates personally to your view of a man biblically, and in what ways?
The purpose and the passion, how much relates to that for me as a man from a biblical perspective?
I think so. Yeah.
Look, I'm not going to pretend I'm a biblical scholar. So if I come at it from that angle, I'm just going to sound ignorant and dense because I am. So I know a little bit and enough probably to get me in trouble. But I will tell you, it is very spiritually based. I believe, as Maximus in Gladiator says, what we do echoes in eternity. And I also believe that we have been placed here in this situation, our worldly existence, for a real purpose. Kipp, you have an incredible set of God-given gifts, talents, abilities, even experiences that he's presented you that make you who you are. And it makes you capable of doing some really incredible things. And I believe that you found a lot of that in your life. You've discovered a lot of that in your life. I have other skills. Some of them overlap with what you're good at. Some of them are unique and different than what they are for you. And every opportunity, every experience, every even hardship is something that God has provided as an opportunity for me to develop and hone skills that are designed to serve people. And I believe that I have found what that is. My job is to be the best man that I can possibly be and help other people do the same. And there's an infinite number of ways to do that, but that is my spiritual mandate. I have been commanded to do that. And that's what I do. So is that biblical? Probably. You could find a number of verses that speak to what I just shared. I don't know what they are, but that's what I believe.
I love that. I mentioned this last week, and hasn't changed in the week since last week's recording.
Interesting.
But I know. Not yet. It might. Full disclosure, and it should, right? If I see it differently, and I should pivot.
It should evolve. It should evolve.
Yeah. But I'm a huge believer that meaning and fulfillment in life is in the space of serving and loving others. Period. And the irony of that is I could go non-religious and come up with why that is so and find evidence of that from a non-biblical perspective. And then on the same token, I can open up, read the 10 Commandments and see that the second commandment is love thy neighbor. And go, well, geez, I wonder why, right? And see constant correlation between, what I believe, just the psychology of it and what it means to be, because, well, let me pause for a second. One of the top psychological needs of all humans is a sense of belonging and relatedness. We seek it. It's in our DNA. Well, one way to do that is to serve people, right? To know that you're making a difference in someone's lives. You could come to that conclusion on your own just looking at psychology. And you can come to that conclusion by opening up the Bible and reading what God asks us to do. And so for me, absolutely. But what's so great about principles is they're transcendent. They're transcendent across religions. They're transcendent in multiple elements of life. And when it starts popping up in all areas, I think that's when you know that you're onto something solid. I'll share one other thought. My opinion, you know what gospel is? It's truth, period. Any form of truth is gospel. And so I see all of that as a religious, spiritual, gospel thing whenever there's truth being found. And so all principles in my world are forms of religion and principles by which I should live my life.
I really like that you talked about it being universal. You can explain truth secularly or through faith. And if it really can stand on its own merit, then it's more likely to be true than not true. One thing that came to mind as you were saying this is when we talk about Stoicism as a group, as an organization, inevitably I have Christians who will say, oh, this is horrible. You should not be teaching Stoicism. You should only be teaching Christianity. I'm like, what are you talking about? They're the same thing. They're literally the same thing explained in a different way. There's a book called The Guide to the Good Life, and it's based on Stoic principles. And it's fascinating to me that so many individuals are not willing to look outside of their gospel, their dogma, maybe I should say, in order to find the truth that exists in other things. Now, as a Christian and a Bible believer, I don't think reading other material at the expense of reading the Bible is the right thing to do, but you can certainly read books. It is not of the devil to consider other concepts that actually support Christianity in a very secular, practical way. One thing that I do, an exercise that I do when I do pray, and I need to pray more often, is that when I do, I often ask for God to put me in positions where I can help people. That's one of the things that's important to me. And the other day when I was traveling back from Dallas, I was running just a few minutes behind, and I got to the kiosk to get my bag tag and turned around, and I saw this lady, and she was crouched over. She was hunched over, and her hands were on her knees, and it looked weird. I was like, I wonder what's going on. And then it looked like her legs were getting wobbly, and so I just ran over there, and I grabbed her by the arm, and she just kind of
pushed her over.
collapsed a little bit. And somebody,
pushed her.
what's that?
Just joking. Grabbed her by the arm and pushed
just
her over.
pushed
Is
her
that what you
over
said?
and got on the plane and stole her seat.
I noticed you have her first class tag. Ugh.
So she's kind of, and her husband, I think it was her husband or the guy that she was with, he grabbed her other arm and we lowered her to the ground. And I'm not sure if she was having a stroke or if she was having some muscular nervous system issue. I'm not sure what it was. But anyways, her husband kind of took over and security came over and they got her a wheelchair and got her up and I ended up leaving. But, I thought that's just a small example. Like how many times do we have little small things where we can help somebody who's struggling and we don't do it, whether it's because we're pressed for time or we're oblivious to the fact that there's other people around us and other things going on. And to your point, and to the point of this podcast on fulfillment, when you serve other people, you will find fulfillment. Whether we're talking Christianity or secular, when you help other people, you will feel better. So maybe it's selfish in some ways, but hey, it's a win-win.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you'll get a first class ticket out of it every once in a while.
Yeah, after you shove her over. Randy Norvell.
Take it dark, Kipp.
I know. What are some ways to improve my listening and memory? I frustrate my wife almost daily by not remembering something that she has said, and she has expressed that it makes her feel unheard and unimportant to me.
Yeah. I've fallen into this trap too, where, your wife or your significant other will say, hey, we're going to go on this trip in 3 weeks and will you take care of the dog or something? Yeah, sure. Yep, absolutely. 3 days later, she's like, hey, have you taken care of the dog arrangements? Oh yeah. You know what? I'm going to do it. I'll do it. 3 hours earlier, she's like, hey, we're leaving. You're like, where are we going? You don't even remember you're leaving anywhere. So I think this is something men fall into.
Yeah. And then you say, where are we going? Well, what about the dog? Who's watching the dog?
Exactly. Who took care of the dog? Yeah. So this is pretty universal, I think, for men, but there's two things that I would say that have helped me. Number one, stop being so busy. Stop doing so much. You're doing too much. And this is something that I learned from Dwayne, and I already knew it, but it was echoed as I had this conversation with Dwayne and that the last weekend where I was out with him. Again, no running water, no electricity, very simple life. I got in late. He put me in his tack shop on the edge of his barn with a twin bed, and I never slept so good in my life. It was simple. It was no electronics. It was great. And he had said to me, and I'm paraphrasing here, that everybody wants to add to their life. More, bigger, better. Everything is always add. And he thinks the guide to living a better life is by having less, having fewer things. Fewer relationships, fewer possessions, fewer distractions. We were sitting on the porch with him and his wife and a couple of his friends who happened to work with him at the ranch there. And he said, it was pitch black. It was probably, 8 o'clock at night. It was pitch dark. We're all sitting on the porch. So it was me, his wife, Tom, his main guy, Tom's wife, and then one of his workers, Mike, from the Netherlands, who was there to experience this and be an apprentice with him. And he said to me, he's like, Ryan, can you believe that there are some people in the world right now who are sitting inside and watching an electronic box that we call the television? How unfortunate. And it was fascinating, like just the way that he lives his life. So the reason I say that is stop doing so much. What can go? What relationships can go? What tasks can go? What electronics and possessions can go? Get rid of that. Number two, systems. Guys, you have to have systems. A simple thing is when she says, will you take care of the dog? What do you do with that information? You just leave it in your head, or does it go on a to-do list or into your calendar? If it's not going here or in a calendar, you're probably not going to remember to do it. So what is your system? And if you realize that she's saying this a lot to you, what she's saying is that you're inefficient. Because that's what it is. You don't have a system for managing your day and your tasks and your duties. And that's a problem. And she's recognizing that as a problem. And if you don't do anything about it, you're going to keep dropping all the tasks and all the balls that you're juggling, and you're going to look really bad and undermine a lot of trust and credibility that you currently have with her. I did this in my marriage, and it's part of the reason there was so much contention and animosity in that. Not all of it, but a part of it.
Yeah. You just hit the point that I want to reiterate is the cost of this. I think you covered everything that, what we need to do to ensure that we don't drop the ball. I love to get connected to the cost. And it's ironic is you could be highly competent and your character, you could have strong character, but if you're unreliable, if you're a black box, if people don't know that they can lean on you, you're not trustworthy. And that sucks. Like, you could be a solid dude, but if you don't prioritize the importance of honoring commitment and follow through, it doesn't matter. You can be a great character, but guess what? When people need you, they're not calling you. They're calling someone else. Even if you have the answers, even if you can serve them. That's how critical this is. Consistency around reliability is critical for those in a position where you're serving and people need you and rely on you. And so I just want to reemphasize just how critical this is. And part of me, when I read your question, Randy, and it's not nothing personal here, right? But it's like, my wife, she feels unheard and unimportant. That's kind of true. It's kind of true. Because guess what? If I was having a phone call with someone that was really important that I remember, guess what I would do? I'd write that shit down.
You'd make it a priority. Yeah.
I'd make it a priority. I'd write it down. I'd take notes because why? It's so important. I don't want to forget. But those people in our lives where we feel like we don't have to serve them, that we have this expectation that they'll just stick around, we have a tendency to put them on the back burner and not treat them how we should be treating them and not making them a priority as much as we should.
You know what it is, Kipp, too, and I'm writing some notes here because these AMAs are just as much for me as they are for anybody, because we start riffing on it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I need to be better at this and do this. And totally. One thing I thought about is men are generally pretty good at the big things. Like if the mortgage has to be paid, we're going to get the mortgage paid. If the roof has a leak in it, we're going to get the roof fixed. It's a big thing. It's a big deal. You know what we're not good at? The little things. Yeah. Your wife says, hey, will you take out the trash cans this morning to the curb before you go to work? And you don't. Or she says, hey, on the way home, can you pick up a gallon of milk? And you say, sure. And you don't. Or she says, hey, will you help the kids with their homework? And you forget or get busy or schedule a late night meeting at work. It's these little things that I think over time, it's like death by 1,000 cuts. I think you have to be more intentional about the little things than you do about the big things, because the big things will get taken care of. It's in front of your face. You'll see it. But those little things, man, that is sinister. Yeah. It's devious and it'll creep up on you so fast. So if you say, hey, hon, I'm going to go to the store and get some screws for the cabinets that we need to fix. You better not forget that. You better come home with those screws. You better. It literally represents your marriage. And I know that sounds like hyperbole. It's not. It represents your marriage. She's not going to divorce you if that's not the case, but do it enough and you're going to have some real fracturing in the relationship.
Yeah, absolutely.
The other thing that I wanted to share on this is I think there's a common misconception about creating safety in relationships for people. And I see this a lot in the men's space. A lot of it is a feminized version, I think, of what a safe space means for a romantic partner, let's say. And what we're often told is that as men, in order to create a safe space, we need to be vulnerable, right? Open up, share your feelings. And I will say there's a time and a place for that. I might not have said that 2 years ago, but I had a conversation where I had to share some things that were really uncomfortable for me to my girlfriend. And that was me being vulnerable. So I can attest to the need for that sometimes. But that's not what creates a safe space, I don't think. I think what creates a safe environment for her is predictable, stable environments. I think that if she knows that if you say you're going to go get milk on the way home, she's 100% certain that you will get milk on the way home because you've proved it time and time again. That you will take the trash out, that you will pick up those screws, that you will not schedule an appointment, that you will schedule the dog kenneling. If you can do that, then she is free to be the woman that you want her to be. But if you don't do it, then she has to get the milk, and she has to take care of the dog, and she has to fix the roof, and she has to fix the cabinets, and she has to do all the little things that you said you would be doing. And then you have the audacity to ask, why is my wife always tired? Why doesn't she appreciate me? Why is she acting like a bitch? Why do you think? Do those little things, guys. I wish I would have done that more. I'm doing those things now, but it was huge. It's huge when you do, and it's huge when you don't.
There is evidence after evidence of the importance of consistency and structure for children growing up. And the psychology benefits and negative consequences of when that's lacking. Structure is critical for kids. And I also find this interesting, and I think I've shared this before. It's been a while though, but I find this fascinating. I think we can relate it to this. When a kid comes to you, Ryan, when one of your kids come to you and says, "Hey Dad, can I get an ice cream?" And you say maybe, that is a higher dopamine hit than a yes. Isn't that crazy?
Interesting.
It's higher because it's an anticipation of a future state. And so when we have unkept promises constantly with people, guess what we're doing? Higher dopamine. Yeah, I got that. Yep, I got that. And then the letdown when you don't is worse than if you just said no.
Interesting.
So say no if it's a no. Say yes if it's a yes. But if you say yes, and don't say maybe, but if you say yes or maybe, man, you got to follow through. You have to. And there's evidence and the research all around just the different types of chemical release that we get in these scenarios. And when people let us down, what that means. There's so much interpretation happening. It's just crazy.
Yeah. Interesting. All right, what's next?
All right.
We beat that one up pretty good.
Yeah. Joe Hicken, how do you balance chasing goals while staying content in the present? Finding joy and peace, but embracing the grind. I love to push myself and I have hard time shifting from my focus to the present. Oftentimes I have to remind myself daily that stopping and playing with my kids or going on a date with my wife is the best way to invest my time. But where I fall, especially in the moment when I'm supposed to be present, I'm still thinking and talking about work, coaching, and future goals.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting when we talk about being productive and setting goals that we never think about that in the context of our families?
I know.
It always has to do with your fitness or your money.
Yep. Tangible, superficial things, or things that just aren't as important by default.
They are that important, and everybody would say they're that important, but their behavior says differently.
Yeah.
So, and for me too, like when I talk about goal setting, I'm not talking about family stuff, even though I said nothing outside of the words goal setting. So here's my proposal for all of us, that instead of, when we say goal setting, instead of simply focusing on our finances and career and our bodies, that we decide we're also going to focus on our spirituality, our mental and emotional well-being, and our families. Yeah. And you're going to do the same goal setting that you do with your money, with your working out. So now when you get to take your wife out on a date, it's a goal of yours. It's moving you towards something you have a desire to have with her, which is a powerful, deeply connected, intimate relationship with her. And this is part of the way that you do it. The same way going to the gym is part of the way that you get strong and healthy. The same way that investing $100 right now or $1,000 or $10,000 is the way that you build wealth. And come up with whatever that looks like for you. Make her the goal, or at least the relationship with her the goal. Make the relationship with the kids the goal. This has worked well for me. My youngest son, he's really into Pokemon. And I was on that trip last week, and he called me up and he said, hey, Dad, when you get back, can we go look at some Pokemon cards? I'm going to earn some money, and then we can go get some cards. And I said, yeah, that's awesome. He's like, yeah, I'm trying to build this complete set. It's called Mega Evolution. The fact that I know that is astounding, but it's the newest set of the Pokemon cards. It's called Mega Evolution. And he's into it. And you know what? I'm kind of into it because he is. I'm excited about it because I see him be excited about it. And he's like, yeah, I'm missing a few cards. I'm missing this rare Illustrator card. I'm like, oh, the Bulbasaur? Before I even thought about it, I even know what the animals are now or the Pokemon characters are now. And he's like, yeah, that one. I'm into it because he's into it. So when he wants to sit down, and he did yesterday morning, he wanted to sit down and put cards, organize them in his binder by number for the set. I didn't feel put out. I didn't feel like I wasn't being productive. I didn't feel like there was something I could be doing that would be a better use of my time. He's the best use of my time because I'm deliberate about it, and I know what kind of relationship I want to have with him. Have you figured that out for yourself? If not, that's the work you need to do first.
Well, and it's a testament of what you've created. I mean, we know this, right? Iron Council. We have 4 quadrants, what we work on. Those quadrants aren't just contribution, right? There's an area of spirituality and mentality, and there's an area for relationships. There's a reason for that because we know that we need to be balanced across all of those areas. So let's love it. Love it. We're on the right path. I think you're doing something good.
I think so. I hope so. I've been doing it for 10 years. If it was wrong, we're putting a lot of people in the wrong direction. So one exercise that's been really helpful for me, and I actually haven't done this for a while. I need to do this. Because the reason that we moved to career and money and health is because, like you said, it's really easy to quantify. It's very tangible. I can just pull up my bank account statement and say, yep, I got more money than yesterday. I'm wealthier today. I can jump on the scale and say, I lost 2 pounds. I'm lighter than I was yesterday. That's easy. But how do you quantify being a better dad, being a better husband? Well, you could ask, and this is something I need to do because it's been a while, is sit down with your kids and say, hey, guys, like I've got a few questions for you, and I want you to be really honest with me, and I need you to rate me on these few things. So the questions are, and I'm making this up on the fly, and I've done some of this before. One question might be, on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being the best, how good am I at spending enough time with each of you? And maybe they say 6. Say, okay, good, write it down. Okay, on a scale from 1 to 10, when I do spend time with you, with 10 being the best, how present am I in that moment with you? And they say, well, you're a 3. Okay, got it. Okay. If you wanted me to be a better dad, you can wave a magic wand and you can change one thing about me and our relationship. What would that one thing be? And let's say they say, well, we just want you to be more interested in the things that we're interested in. Okay. On a scale from 1 to 10, how interested would you say I am in the things you're interested in? And maybe they say 5. Good, write it down. Okay, you're quantifying it all. And then you do the work for 90 days. And I'm not going to get into that for the sake of time. We've beat that one to death too. In 90 days, you sit down with them and you say, hey, kids, do you remember a couple months ago, we sat down at the dinner table and you rated me and those were your numbers and I wrote those numbers down. And And they say, yeah, well, over the last 90 days, I've been doing X, Y, and Z. And you explain what you've been doing. Or maybe even before you start doing it, you explain and include them in the process. And then you say, so can I sit down with you guys again and we can do the same survey and see if I stayed the same, got better, or got worse? And then you allow them to answer those questions again. And now maybe you moved up 2 points in certain areas, and maybe you stayed the same in an area, and maybe you moved behind in another area. This is how you quantify it. And having quantifiable objectives is powerful for men.
Yeah, spot on. Sean Combs, how do you help your kids find purpose inside your home and in life in general?
Responsibility. That's it.
Yep.
Responsibility. And then tie it to a why, tie it to the reason for doing those things. So for example, if one of your children does the dishes and that's just what they do, why is that important? Well, it has to do with health, right? It has to do with keeping things organized and orderly. It has to do with keeping things from getting broken. It has to do with setting silverware out and plates out and presenting it in a nice way so we can have a great dinner together. It represents a lot. And the more conversations you can have around that, and then teach them in those responsibilities the importance of mastery. I was going to say perfection. It's not. It's mastery. So when my kids do the table, sometimes my boys do this a lot. Not so much my daughter. They'll just throw the fork by the plate. I said, all right, guys, tell me what's wrong with this picture. They're like, well, the fork's on the wrong side. Yeah, the fork goes on the left and the knife goes on the right. And so they'll throw the knife on there and the blade will be pointing out. I'm like, hey, what's wrong with this picture? They're like, well, the knife's facing the wrong way. It should be facing in. Correct. And it should be straight and everything should look uniform and the same. And then why do we do that? I'm not the dish Nazi. There's a reason that we do that, because I want them to take their work seriously, or the way they drive seriously, or the way they interact with people in their relationships seriously. I want that to be serious to them, and I want them to be tied to a why. The only other thing I would say on that is sometimes it's okay for it not to always be that structured, and you can let them choose something they want to handle. So you might say to your kids, hey kids, there's a lot to do. What I propose is that everybody takes something in the house and we work on it together. So son, what would you like to do? I'll let you have first pick today. What would you like to do? Well, I want to organize the refrigerator. Great. Tell me what that looks like. That's going to be your project. And then all of us are going to actually see how well you did. And then to your daughter, you're like, what do you want to do? And she's like, I'd like to clean the living room. Great. Tell me what that looks like. And then you get all the other kids. And then we're going to come in and we're going to critique. We're going to tell you what you did well and what needs to be fixed. Okay, got it. And you do that for everybody in the house. And then it becomes fun and a game and gives them some buy-in.
Yeah, I love that. I don't know where the balance is here, but Sean, I'd look for opportunities to give them the ownership with the responsibility. There's a different weight to things when you're holding me responsible to a sub area, but ultimately I know that, dad will fix it or repair it, and I'm just being acted upon, and I'm just I'm supposed to do my little chunk of it, versus it's up to me to figure it out. It's an innate human behavior to want to have ownership and autonomy and to be able to create. It's part of being human. And so look for those opportunities to grant the responsibility with ownership of how it gets done. Now, the level and quality may be subpar, but they'll feel a different weight when it's up to them. And if they don't do it, no one will. It creates a sense of importance of their role. And we do this at work all the time, people will generate group accountability and it just diminishes personal responsibility. But when it's up to you and if it fails, it's on you, there's this heightened level of ownership and responsibility that comes to the table. And so look for those chances to do that.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been we've all been in that situation where we tell one of our kids to fix something, and then you're like, "Okay, try it," and you know it's not going to work. Like you know it's not going to work, and you're like, "Try it," and they're like, "It's awesome, whatever, it's fine." I'm like, try it, and they try it, and it falls apart, or it breaks, or it doesn't work properly, and they're like, "What's going on?" I'm like, "I don't know. You're going to have to figure that out. You know the answer. Let them figure it out a little bit. You don't." It's not about playing games with them. That's one thing I've seen people do where they'll set their people up for failure. Don't do that, but let them have the accountability with it. You know, there's another thing too that I was thinking about on this with giving them meaning and purpose. Empower your children to pursue the things that are interesting to them. So when my son is into Pokemon, I don't make fun of him for being into Pokemon. Why would I do that? Now, I don't like it as much as he does, but why would I make fun of him? Why would I mock him about being excited about something? Instead, I empower him. I say, hey, do you want to earn money to buy Pokemon cards? So now he has responsibility for doing something around the house, for earning his own money, and then for buying Pokemon cards. Last night, he owed me a little bit of money because he wanted this special pack or whatever. And so I bought it for him. I said, you owe me for this. And he's like, okay, but I also want to earn money for this weekend because we have plans for the weekend. I said, that's fine. And so we went out and we did store orders last night. He helps me. And he comes back in and he's like, Dad, can I have $16? We did 16 orders. I pay him $1 per order we do. He says, can I have $16? I said, no. He's like, well, why not? And I said, because you still owe me $4. And then he's like, what do you mean? You said I could have money. I said, no, I said you could earn money, but you owe me 20. And now how much do you owe me? He's like, 4. I'm like, right. So if you want to earn more money, you got to do more work. Like I'm not paying for these things for you. And it means more to him. My oldest son, he loves sports photography, loves it. So I invested in a camera for him with nice equipment, with certain lenses. I don't know. He knows all about that. I don't. But I invested in that for him because I wanted to empower him. It's not as important to me. He likes it. I'm going to find a way to pour into that interest of his. Just empower your kids. Don't live vicariously through them and don't expect them to be interested in only the same things that you are. That would be my advice. Kipp, I can do one more. I got a jet.
Yeah. Caleb Johnson, how do you approach or frame pain in your mind when you know it's inevitable, such as before surgery? Okay, wait. So how do I approach pain? How do I? What was it? What was the question? How do I what? Yeah. How do you approach pain in your mind when you know it's just going to happen, right? And he's using an example like such as surgery. Well, just tie it back into your meaning. That's what I think you have to do. Whether we're talking about surgery or the pain of standing on stage in front of people and presenting to a large crowd. Yeah. Both of those things are painful in their own right, but the surgery is, okay, I know this is going to hurt, but it means that my shoulder is going to be repaired and I'm going to be able to be more physically active or feel better about myself or, you know, whatever it might be. But attach the pain to the purpose. And if there's pain, just suffering without any meaning, don't do that. Some people will suggest that. Look, I don't suggest that you go bang your head against the wall because it's painful. There's no inherent worth in being in pain. But if it means something, then that's the sacrifice that needs to be made. And in this case with a surgery, it's the cost of recovery. That's the price that you have to pay to have a working shoulder. And I remember when I had I tore my pec in jiu-jitsu and I had to have surgery and it was painful. But I repaired my pectoral muscle and it works at about 85 to 90% capacity now. If I had not done that, I'd be much more crippled than I am right now. And I'm not interested in that quality of life. So yeah, attach it. And then the only other thing I would say is be smart, mitigate pain. So how do you mitigate the pain of surgery? Feel your body, build your muscles, get proper sleep and nutrition, work with your physical therapist after the fact so you can mitigate, reduce that pain. That's going to help mitigate it.
If it's standing in front of an audience, how do you mitigate the pain or the fear of that? Practice your speech, know your conversations, do it in smaller, lower risk environments, and that mitigates the pain that you might have to be dealing with.
Yeah, I love that. I'll make this quick, Ryan, because I know you have to go. Here's a quote from Andrew Huberman around stress. And so let's make just a correlation of the mental pain of stress. He says, to be able to learn something, we have to shift our nervous systems into states that are uncomfortable. Any successful type of learning and goal pursuit is going to involve errors, failures, anxiety, and frustration. All of those states of mind and body shift the brain into modes of neuroplasticity. They give the brain the ability to change. Stress, and sometimes pain, is an enhancer. Pain in the gym, enhancer to growth. Stress in the mind, enhancer to growth. Here's the key though, it enhances what? So we have to look at these things from a positive light. Otherwise, we're enhancing a negative mindset. Oh, this always happens to me. I'm a victim. And then that's the lesson, right? So we have to look at and be realists. And it's so funny when you do this, Ryan. We know that growth is on the backside of what? Reps and difficulty and struggle. But yet we seek comfort. And when things aren't comfortable, we go, oh, I don't know why it's this way, but I want to learn and grow and become a better version. But yet I don't want the stress of it. So we need to flip the script and realize that stress and reps is how we learn and grow, and embrace it and don't make it so negative, and just realize this is what it means to be human. This is what it means to grow and become a better version of ourselves. It's going to take stress and pain.
I mean, that's well said. That's a more positive thing than I was just going to say, because one thought that came to mind as you were saying that is don't be an idiot. And all of us are. And we do things that cause ourselves pain. We do. We bring it upon ourselves.
Unfortunately. Yeah.
Just the other day, just the other day, my girlfriend and I were on the phone, and both of us misconstrued or misunderstood what the other was trying to communicate. And I snapped at her, and she snapped at me, and then I snapped back at her because she snapped at me. And then I said, let's just, we just moved on from the car. We started talking about something else, which to her credit, she has a great ability to do. And then we got off the phone, and she sent me a message, and she said, hey, the reason that I handled it this way was because, and she said why. And she said, sometimes I don't quite understand your intentions when you're saying something, and I misunderstood what you were trying to communicate. A really thoughtful, hey, no harm, no foul. And I wrote back and I said, I was joking with her a little. I said, I know that sometimes I communicate like a Neanderthal, but when I do tell you things, it's because I care about you and our relationship. And so even if I deliver it poorly, which I often do, my intentions are always good. How many times have men had that kind of conversation, not the second part, the first part, and been frustrated and angry and then kept digging the damn hole? Stop digging. Stop doing the behavior that's producing the pain. And in this case, this was a rare instance of me doing a pretty decent job and her doing a great job at stop digging the pain that we're both experiencing by bickering with each other. Neither one of us want to do that. There was nothing to fight over. But guys, you have to stop doing the behavior, whether it's some sort of an addiction, whether it's some sort of mindset, whether it's some sort of behavior. Stop digging. We talked about it. That's rock bottom, when you stop digging the hole.
Yeah, I love that. All right, sir. A couple call to action. Iron Council, right? We talked about the balance of the importance of those multiple areas of our lives, whether it be spiritual and mental and our physical well-being, as well as prioritizing relationships. That's what we do in the IC. And we do it as teams, what we call battle teams. If you want to join us or learn more about the Iron Council, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And as always, connect with Mr. Mickler on X and Instagram at Ryan Mickler. And then a call to action on YouTube. Find us on YouTube. I think we're up to 357,000 subscribers. Join us, subscribe, leave comments, share the message, etc.
Let's get, I was going to say 500,000. Let's just get to 400,000. Let's get to
Yeah.
400,000 over there. That means that there's going to be an additional roughly 50,000 men served every single week, learning, growing, developing, hearing new ideas, hearing from our guests. Unfortunately, you will have to put up with Kipp and I once a week, but we have other guests that come in that are way better than me anyways. I won't speak for you, Kipp.
No, they're better from both
Check
of
it
us.
out over on YouTube.
Awesome.
All right, you guys, good questions. I'm sorry we had to cut it short today, but I've got some things to take care of, including getting ready for my hunt. Kipp, you'll have to tell us next week how your hunt in Utah went. I'm assuming it didn't go that well because I didn't hear anything about it.
It's a long tag, so it's not over yet. Yeah, it's not over yet.
Oh,
Which is
okay.
also,
All right.
there's
You
some
still got
principles
time.
we talked about, like having a big window for a tag versus intentionality and hyper focus, like what you're going to be doing in Minnesota. So we can talk about that next week because there's some.
Let's
principles
talk about
there.
it next week. We'll get after it.
Yeah.
All right, guys.
Okay.
Appreciate you. Get that mind right. Go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.